So that's kind of the period of time or life that we're focusing on today. And we're talking about relationships. So tell me about some of the struggles that you really see people going through with relationships at this point in life.
there there is a lot of personal questioning in midlife. We no longer know it all, and we know we don't know it all. Uh, and we have had some struggles and some successes, some losses. And midlife is a time of lots of awareness of transitions. We may have
Mhm.
had transitions as a younger person, but there's a real keen awareness about the transitions. And we get set in our ways. I think it's important to tell the truth about that.
Good
If
point.
I'm doing some right, if I'm doing something in a particular way, it matches for me, right? I have thought about it. I've made some conscious choices and conscious decisions, and it works for me.
Mhm.
And the same is true in relation. Even if you've been in a marriage for many, many years, if you haven't kept up with being emotionally current with each other, then you
Mm.
begin to disconnect. Um, you begin to move away from each other. There's no, generally, it can be that there's no arguing, right? There's no upset, there's no
Ah,
tension. But there's this way that when they talk about the spark, it really is true that people begin to move away and they begin to live a life that is not we, that is much more I centered.
interesting. Interesting.
So we really want to stay focused on who am I as an individual? Where am I going? What are my goals and dreams and visions for my life? And who are we? And to
Mhm.
not lose sight of either one. Relationships need both. Needs to be infused by each individual and shared values, shared goals, shared vision.
Yeah. Now, as you're saying that, a question comes to my mind. This would not be true for every couple in midlife, but for many, they would have they would still be going through sort of the adolescent period with their kids, or they would have just gone through that. And that can be challenging. And so I would have thought before you said that, that maybe that would be the harder period of time to kind of stay together and keep up the communication and the emotional connection. And maybe is it just different? And then when we are in midlife and our kids are maybe more grown, we're more focused on doing our own thing. Is that kind of what you're saying?
So, in the earlier parts of relationships, when we have small children and adolescent children, relationships often become transactional,
Mm,
right? They're no longer yummy experientially. It really is about who's doing what when,
yes.
right? And that's the beginning of that disconnection. It's very subtle. Again, people, many couples aren't fighting, but there's a hollowness, an emptiness, or a boredom begins to set in. Although boredom is a kissing cousin to anger. Um,
Hmm.
and then as our kids are older and then they leave, if we're talking about that new concept called empty nest,
Yes.
the couples that have been disconnecting over time have a much more difficult time when the kids leave than the couples who have remained connected.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. That makes sense. And I definitely understand the empty nest period. That's where I am now. Now, another thing that I've heard you mention, which feels a little different to what you're describing, is the best friend syndrome. So tell us what you mean by that as well.
Yeah. Let me add one piece before we go there, and that
Sure.
is that there's a concept known as the sandwich generation. That why we have children and we have aging parents because people are living longer and longer and longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was very fortunate. My grandmother was very young when I was born, and I was a woman in my 50s when she passed away. So I had my
Wow.
grandmother, I know, I had my grandmother in my life for many, many, many years. So we've got that going on sort of peripherally sometimes as well. And the best friends is really where people are companionated. They enjoy each other's company. They may travel together. They're still each other's champions and supporters in life, but they're not having sex. They're not romantic. They're not intimate. There's that whole piece of heart experience. And this is important, emotional vulnerability is
Mm.
just not there because they don't tap into their hearts. So they don't have opportunities to become emotionally vulnerable and available. So it's, again, not that they're shut down, not that they're mad and
Yeah.
mean and having, no, we do, there are couples, but that's not what we're talking about. These are couples who still really like each other and enjoy each other and are committed to be together for all kinds of reasons. But that piece of the relationship has gone to sleep, is how I like to talk about it.
This is very much helping me understand, and I'm sure that's true for listeners as well, because when you originally said that you're losing the emotional connection, you're kind of going emotionally in your own direction, I was thinking that that meant maybe you just weren't communicating at all as much. And so that must be different than the best friend syndrome. But now I see it's not necessarily different. You can be this best friend pair, but you're not connecting on the key deep things, I guess is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Emotional sharing, emotional caring. Not
Yeah.
that people don't care about each other, but there's a way that when we are, so think about, here, I'll draw you a picture. None of my degrees are in art.
That is absolutely fine. And listeners, I'll describe it as best I can as well. So let's see.
Okay. So this is a continuum. Can you see it?
Yes.
It's just, oh, I didn't put the middle line. So there's a center line, and then the line goes to the left and to the right. It's a horizontal line out to infinity. On one side of the line is intimacy. On the other side of the center is alienation.
Okay.
And so I always tell couples that I want them to be in the half from infinity intimacy to halfway to the center point. Halfway.
Ah, okay.
So couples that are best friends tend to not be in that area because that's sexual, emotional, intimate, vulnerable. So they tend to be in the next half, if you will, toward the center line. People
Okay.
who are angry and fighting and resentful don't feel seen, don't feel heard, don't feel important, they don't feel like they matter. They have crossed the center line and now they are making their way toward alienation.
Okay. Okay, that helps. And if you're listening to this, imagine I'm going to go into math teacher mode for just a second.
Okay.
Imagine a number line. 0 is in the middle. And
Uh,
on the positive numbers end is where you're saying emotional intimacy. And on the negative is you're
Great
saying
sex.
yes. And on the negative, you're saying alienation.
Yeah.
And you'd like us to be greater than 0, over to the right, at least half again towards that end.
Toward intimacy. Yes.
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 Okay.
And here's why. I mean, I just made this up. It's a model I created, but here's why I suggest that. There's more resilience and there's more flexibility for healing hurt feelings the
Mm,
closer you are in the continuum of connection. Let's swap out the word intimacy for the word connection. So the
yes.
closer you are at connection, because what is hurt feelings? It's a momentary in our connection. And
Yeah.
so couples are much more easily able and able to repair. And the further toward the center line, the more difficult, the more problematic, the more work it takes to heal your own heart and then be open to receiving your partner and then healing, repairing the connection.
That makes sense. And of course, we're going to hurt each other's feelings
Oh,
occasionally, right? We're all human. So, yeah, important to be able to
yeah,
handle
there
that.
are no perfect partners, which is the good news because I'm not perfect either.
Right.
So nobody has to be perfect. The requirement, the imperative is that we decide that we want to be here and we're committed to being here. Not just because I made a commitment, but because I have decided this is where I want to be. I've
Yeah.
chosen. I get up every morning. Before Mark died, we would get up we used to say that we waited our whole lives to meet each other.
Wow.
And we got up every single morning and recommitted to each other, to our relationship every morning, right?
Hmm.
We looked for how were we going to be joyful together every morning, including the morning that he died.
And I'm sorry for your loss, certainly. That really resonates with me because we talk on so many podcast episodes about moments of joy and having joy in our day and thinking of things from a joy perspective. But I don't think I've ever said joy in the relationship. And so it's kind of like just expanding that idea, which is fantastic. Yeah.
Just did a reel a little while ago, and in the reel, the message is: wake up in the morning, look for joy. Ask yourself, where will I find joy with my partner today? Look for joy. Expect joy. Expect to create joy. Trouble, problems, strife, challenges will find us. But we really want to be committed to, with deliberate intention, being joyful with each other.
That's wonderful. I will remember that. I think we'll all remember that. So I'm going to reel us back just a second because I do want to talk about some things that people can do, and that's one of them. There you go. But I also first want to ask if someone's listening to this. Clearly, one trouble sign is no sex. I'm hearing you say that. What are some other things maybe that people could keep an eye out for to realize that, oh, maybe I need to kind of revamp my relationship a little bit at this point?
Physical touching, physical touching every single day.
Hmm.
This is also the what to do, right? It
Okay,
lands
great. Yes, we'll go right into both.
lands on both sides. Yeah, a squeeze of the shoulder as you walk by. I mean, it doesn't have to be bear hugs. Not everybody likes to give hugs or likes to receive hugs, but physical touch, the shoulder, the back, are typically places that are non-sexual but very comforting, that
Mm.
feel really good. Or the squeeze of a hand, kissing the top of the head or the forehead.
Hmm.
Again, less sexual if you're really trying to reignite the spark or trying to come back and find each other. So physical
Right.
touch every single day.
Okay.
Another one is our words. Let your partner know that they matter. I am so happy that I'm here with you. And I don't think I've told you that in a long time.
Mm.
Have I told you lately how much I see you doing for us? And it means a lot to me.
Wow.
So let your partner know, talk, words. And if you have to AI it in order to get some ideas, go ahead and do that. Or Google it, go ahead and do that. DuckDuckGo. Go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
But make sure that you've got an arsenal, if you will, or what do they call a quiver of arrows?
Yes.
Things, right, that you can say. I love this one. Are you ready? Surprise your partner.
Oh my. Okay.
Right, you would be amazed, Cheryl, at what surprises do, how powerful a surprise is. You might just bring home a pint of ice cream, or
Ah,
or on your way home say, um, shall I pick up dinner on our way home, or on your way out in the morning, or if maybe two people are still working at home, so something. Let me take the dog for a walk.
I
All right, I'm
see.
gonna try to unload the dishwasher.
I see.
Right, something that really says, I don't always do this. I'm thinking about you. You're important to me. Here's a surprise.
I like that. When you said surprises, I thought, ooh, my husband doesn't really like surprises. But this he would. This he would.
Yeah. I used to pull the golf cart out of it was parked in front of Mark's car. And so I would pull his car out and then pull the golf cart out, pull his car back in. And it came to, over time, I did it every time he left at 4:40. um, but what did I start to say? Oh, the first 4 or 5 times, he was so surprised. I mean, he
Yeah.
went, wow. Anyway, I'm back in the house. He said, that was really cool. So we can do little things. Just have to think about, what do you do in your day already?
Hmm.
Which brings me to daily habitual sharing. Daily habitual share. Yeah, this one's
Okay.
great. So if you do the dishes every night, just let's say you do the dishes every night, maybe there's a stool that you pick up at Crate and Barrel, and he can pull the stool over close to the side of the sink and hang out with you for a few minutes, so that
Huh.
it's a ritual. He doesn't do it every single night, but something that you already do that you can do together.
I like.
He might bring, you might bring him, he might bring you, she might bring you coffee, right? And you might sit for 10 or 15 minutes and have coffee before you zip out into your day.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
rituals that you can do together, things that you already do that you can now do together. Always
I
take a
like that.
walk. Taking a walk is really great. Even if it's dark, even if it's cold, go with him when he takes the dog for a walk,
I like that. Yeah.
right? And you don't even have to talk. In fact, not talking is preferred. So these are not opportunities to catch up, to problem solve, no problem solve, as a matter of
Mm.
fact. These are opportunities to connect, to just sit with each other or walk with each other, just to have a time for connection and to quiet your brain and open your heart. So valuable, so powerful.
Wow. Okay. I would have thought the talking was needed. That's a really good point. Yeah.
When there are conversations that you need or want to have, there's a couple of things about talking. One, you should always, underscore always, make an appointment. So
Hmm.
I come in and I say, Cheryl, there's something that I really want to talk to you about. When would be a good time? I'm available now if you are, or let's look at our calendars and see when a good time would be. How many times have you been at your computer or been in the kitchen or been on the phone, and lots of people in the house, not just our partners, are talking as they're walking into our office without regard to where
Yeah.
my mind is, where your
Yeah.
mind is, what else might be going on, what you might be preoccupied with. And so we're right off the bat not good listeners. I mean, immediately.
Yep.
So if a conversation is important enough to have, schedule it and let your partner know how long you think it'll be. I think we'll need about 12 or 15 minutes. Um, let's have lunch so that we're not hurried and we have an hour.
Yeah.
So always schedule talks.
That's impacting me because I have noticed, and maybe this is a midlife thing or an easily distractible thing, who knows, but my husband and I both occasionally will start telling each other about something, not realizing that the other person really isn't paying attention, is in the middle of an email or whatever. And then whoever was being talked to doesn't remember what was said. And that just, it just creates a little confusion. So, good point.
Yeah, and our focus and our motivation is a little less anyway in midlife. I mean, we really are
Hmm.
just less focused, and our memory isn't as sharp as it was. It's not that we were having dementia or anything. It's just that
Right.
we begin to slow down a little bit.
Right.
And so we
Right.
always want to create that safe space. And you want to let your partner know what it is you want to talk about. So I'd like to talk about X. I think it'll only be 15 or 20 minutes. Um, and this is so important. And I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. And I'm looking forward to getting your ideas. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it.
That takes all the negativity out of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, because men do not, the minute you say, I want to talk, it's just true. So many years ago, I was in a school gymnasium and I was up on the stage in front of a lectern. And I had been talking, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. And this man in the middle of the auditorium jumps up and he's waving his hand, Dr. Jackie, Dr. Jackie. So I thought it was probably very important. So I came out from around the lectern and I said, hello. It sounds like you've got something really important to share. Please, how can I help you? He said, look, I didn't want to come tonight. I didn't want to come. I didn't want to, I knew I was going to hate you. I didn't want to hear anything I didn't want to hear anything you wanted to say. My wife dragged me. And here's the thing. I love you and I love everything you're saying. Here's the problem. I don't have a clue how to do it. So if you can tell me how to do all the things you're talking about, I'm in.
Hmm.
That man changed the course of my business because it suddenly dawned on me that, and relationship coaching was in its infancy. Coaching
Hmm.
was in its infancy, let alone relationship
Yes.
coaching. And, but it occurred to me, I recognized in that moment that there were a lot of theories and a lot of models and a lot of colleagues who were talking at people, and no one was making anything operational, which is why
Hmm.
the word actionable is my middle name. If I'm not saying something that you can use in the couple of minutes that we're talking or I'm talking, then I've not done my job.
Right. And I'm hearing lots of things we can actually use.
Okay, good.
Absolutely. Lots of things. And let me see. I had a couple of questions that came to mind as you were saying these actionable things. So I guess what you're saying is taking these steps, physical touch, walking together, having these little rituals, they're moving us along this spectrum
Yes.
towards more intimacy,
And
right?
connection, because they are connecting events,
Okay.
right? They're connecting events. You can't do any of these things with each other for even a moment and have it not energetically impact both partners.
Hmm. I see. I see. Okay. I like that. And actually, that was my next question is what if someone is hearing this and thinking, okay, I'm happy to try these things, but I'm not sure my husband, wife, partner, whatever is willing to really listen to this or try these things. What if it's one person starting with these things? Is
One
that going to matter?
person can make a huge positive impact in a
Hmm.
relationship. Think of it like a dance. So we're dancing and we're dancing the same steps. All of a sudden, I change the steps. We're still dancing, but we're not dancing the same dance. One person can
Hmm.
absolutely positively impact a relationship. I had a client in Geneva, Switzerland, many years ago, and her husband would not come. There was just
Hmm.
no way. And I said, "Fine, you can do this work." And she enrolled. We started working together, and about a month went by. He came into the kitchen one night and he said, what are you doing? And she knew what he meant because she was reacting differently or she
Uh-huh.
wasn't reacting. She was being proactive. She knew exactly. And the signal to her was, he's noticing. She
Yeah.
said, you know that psychologist that I said I wanted to work with? And he said, yes. And she said, well, I went ahead and I'm working with her. You are? Dr. Jackie? Yes. Oh. And he turned around and he walked out of the kitchen. He every Wednesday, because we spoke on Wednesday morning,
Hmm.
her early afternoon. And every midday, they were both entrepreneurs. He would close up his store and he would come home and open a bottle of wine. And, and he would sit down and he would say, "What did Dr. Jackie have to say today?"
Wow.
And she and then they completely transformed their relationship.
Wow. That's such a great story. I'm sure, tribe, whoever's listening and wanting a little hope, there you go. I mean, that's really positive.
I say to couples, as long as you're still there, there's
Mm-hmm.
still hope.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're still there, there's an opportunity for connection. Something is going on, or one of you would be gone. So
Right.
I see that as huge. And often couples, generally it's wives, will say, "He's not saying anything. He's not sharing. He's not." And I keep saying, "He's showing up," and
Hmm.
that's enough.
That's a good point. Small steps. Yeah. Well, you've given us lots of action items. Is there anything you think we might have missed as we're talking about this subject and what we can do to strengthen these?
There's just one thing that I want to touch on, and that is the win 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 principle. I win, you win, we win.
Mm.
Our we is a third energetic entity that we co create. And when we're making decisions and we've got things that we're discussing and planning, it must be win win win. I win, you win, we win. Not any one part should take a hit. There's
Hmm.
no, I always say this, people go, "Oh, I have such haters on Instagram when I say this." There is no compromise. There is no compromise. There is no
Interesting.
negotiation. Compromise and negotiating are not communication tools for romantic partners. They're just not. When you compromise, whoever is compromising, somebody is giving up something, and there is no giving in, giving up, or settling for less. So there's no compromise. There's win, win, win. I win, you win, we win. And the foundational piece is I want you to have what you want and you want me to have what I want. So we're really talking about how do we do
Yeah.
that? How do we get there? It always makes me laugh when one partner says to another, "No, you can't do that." It's like, "Excuse me? We are peers." And there is
Right.
no telling a peer slash partner no. We're adults. We choose to be here. We have stepped in and stepped up. We're showing up. And the question is how? How do we do that? How do we get that done? Tell me more about that because I don't get it. What does that mean to you? What does that mean for you? What will you get if this happens? Because I just don't get it. It's like you're talking another language. Curiosity. Be
Hmm.
curious. But there is no saying no.
I feel like we could have a whole nother episode about what you just said. But really fascinating. And I like the curiosity and I like the discussion becomes how, because that feels forward moving, forward thinking.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And my brain is also saying to me, well, there are some issues where that would be pretty tough, but okay, we'd figure out how, I suppose.
Yeah, and well, there's just one other piece I can offer, and that is that there are. I've developed three kinds of conversation structures,
Mm.
and one of them is called couples dialogue, where couples are sitting knee to knee, and this space between us is relational space. We both step into relational space for the purpose of being known, not to problem solve, not to be heard if you're listening, but for the purpose of being known when we each step into relational space. And when there are big things, tricky things, that's the only way, not to give all the good reasons, because that's going on in our heads, but to step into relational space for the purpose of being known. Every time you do that, every time you have a conversation, more and more gets revealed and shared.
I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot.